Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to break down how Holland defeated Germany in their Euro 2020 qualifier. We're going to the first half and see how Germany were able to frustrate Holland before Holland were able to mount a second half comeback. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But now, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Germany, more of a 3-4-3, Timo Werner, Royce, and Gnabry up front. Out in the wingback roles, Klosterman and Scholes, and in midfield, Kroos and Kimmich. Then we move to Holland, more of a 3-5-2, Memphis Depay and Babel up front. Out in the wingback roles, Dumfries and Proms. And in midfield, we went with Wijnaldum, De Roon, and Frenkie de Jong. So now let's get to the first half and see how Germany caused Holland so many issues. So when we break down the first half between Germany and Holland, we have to look to Germany's shape and the fact that Holland's shape without the ball allowed Germany to get themselves into goal-scoring opportunities in that opening half. So when we look to the board, we look at Germany 3-4-3 without the ball. And when you really break it down, we have to see how they're looking to stop Holland, who are looking to have control of the game. What we end up seeing here is that we have Germany's front three dropping off a bit, and the central player, because they often interchange between Werner, Royce, and Gnabry in those front roles, we saw the central player sit on De Jong. So what would happen there is that they would have the central player sit on De Jong, the wider players would kind of drop off, and they would allow the center backs to have time on the ball to push forward. They did apply presses in various manners, but when we did see the wider players in De Ligt and Blind step forward, more so Blind, you would see the wider players step in to ensure that they close them down. Blind was the one that was a bit more adventurous, looking to step into midfield when Holland had possession, and when he did that, you would have one of the three, more so the one on the right-hand side, stepping to Blind. If he couldn't get to Blind in time, what we would see is Klosterman shoot out into that zone and close down Blind, and we would have Yinter step across to ensure that they had the left wing back in Prom shut out of the game. So that's how Germany went to shut down that avenue. Like I said, they try to keep De Jong quiet. He often tried to drop off deeper and move into those spaces in between the center backs who did split, but they wanted to ensure that he was unable to dictate the tempo of the game from that midfield zone, and they did a good job there. If they ever had the central forward in the German attack step forward to press, let's say, Van Dijk or perhaps De Ligt, what we would see is Toni, Kroos would step into that space to try and ensure that they didn't have De Jong moving into those positions. So that's how they went about it in that sense, and they were doing a good job. But more so, their shape was defined, and that was pivotal because, like I said, they have the central player moving out into those positions. If De Ligt wants to move out, they could have the right-sided player step to him. They have, or the left-sided player step to him. They have the right side covered with Blind shut out of the game. We had Holland's wingback stepping forward to try and peg back Scholes and Klosterman. And what ended up happening here is that we often saw Memphis drop into space near Toni Kroos. So Kroos would step to him. You would have Wijnaldum versus Kimmich on that midfield zone. Another interesting factor is that we often saw De Roon pick up or adopt deeper positions, and what ended up happening, and this was often when Royce was on the left-hand side, is that Royce would leave De Ligt to have the ball, and he would shift over to De Roon, because if he shifts over to De Roon, that allows Kroos to stick near Memphis, and he did a very good job against Memphis. Whenever Memphis dropped in deep, Kroos was tight on him, winning the ball. There was only one occasion where he was able to get the better out of Kroos, but it didn't lead to a goal-scoring opportunity, so the German defense was okay with that. So that's how they were looking to stop that route to goal. And there were often times where we saw Memphis or we saw Babel move towards Ta, and that would see him step out of position because he was the one that was often moving into midfield to close those players down, and that would still leave Germany okay because all they would have was Babel against perhaps Yinter and Sula, so they weren't really worried about Ta stepping into Babel or Memphis when they moved to those positions, and that was key there. There's only one opportunity where we did see Ta step out of position and out of line was when we saw Royce shifting out to De Roon, and De Ligt was able to play a pass into Memphis, who moved to the left of Kroos, found him there, Ta stepped out, fouled him. Besides that, you really see Germany's shape, and they were able to close down their markers efficiently And it was successful because the wingbacks didn't win their battles. Kimmich was able to stop Wijnaldum from bombing forward. They ensured that Memphis wasn't able to pick up the ball in those deeper positions. De Roon moving out to the right didn't cause them any issues, and Blind trying to push out to the left to create and cause an overload in midfield didn't really help out as well. And when you break down that first half and see where Holland were really able to find joy, it's difficult. Germany's passing was sloppy, and the only time where they really did break was when we saw a poor back pass from Schulz beyond Ta, and that fell to Babel, who was able to hold off Ta and slide the ball in behind Sula for Memphis, breaking across Yinter. And what happened there was that he cut across those two defenders and forced Neuer into a save. But besides that, this was all about Germany, and a lot of it was down to the way that Holland looked to defend without the ball. And what happened there was that they dropped off, when they lost the ball, instantly dropped off into a 5-3-2. And when they drop off into that 5-3-2, it allows one of the center backs in the German backline to have control of the ball because they have the 3v2 advantage. We saw Babel and we saw Memphis kind of split out, and that allowed Sula to get on the ball. And that was a bit odd because he's a reliably decent passer from the back and he could find those passes, and we see that on a week-to-week basis at Bayern Munich. So they allowed him to get on the ball. The defensive roles were kind of the same. You had Germany's center forwards occupying the center backs, and then the midfield battle was kind of intact. We would see Kimmich versus Wijnaldum, and then De Roon would step into Kroos whenever he could. So you look at that and you kind of question how Germany are going to build attacks. Well, we do see the center forwards, and they were dropping off. They want to get the ball to feet. We didn't really see Germany go long initially, but that was how they were looking to go about it. They had the wing backs pushed high in Klosterman and in Schulz to peg back Dumfries and Proms, and like I said, the center forwards dropping deeper. But a lot of Germany's best moves stemmed through Sula being the spare man, building out of the back, and what we saw here was him stepping forward on two separate occasions. He finds Gnabry dropping deeper. The first time Gnabry drops into midfield and shifts the ball out into Yinter. Shortly after that, you see him split Wijnaldum and Babel and find Gnabry again. This time he cuts through midfield and slides the ball out to Schulz, who is higher. And when we look to the build up to the goal, it stems through Sula once again. This time he locates Timo Werner, dropping off and dragging out De Ligt. And before De Jong can step into the challenge, what ends up happening here is that he drops the ball off to Kimmich ahead of Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum doesn't get tight on him. We see Royce near Van Dijk. We have Blind being pulled out by Gnabry before he spins off him, and we have Klosterman making the run beyond Proms, and Kimmich clips a superb ball into that space for Klosterman to break him behind. And what happens here is as he breaks forward, he fires a shot that he should score on goal that is pushed away by Cillessen, but Gnabry's run off Blind was unable to catch up to him, and we have Gnabry fire the rebound into the net. But just like that, you see the movement. Sula finding the marker, the runner dropping off. You have Blind being sucked out. You have Klosterman making the run over the top. And that is what Germany were trying to do there. And that's how they're able to go ahead. Shortly after that, we see a breakdown from Holland. We see the ball being shifted out by Neuer to Yinter. And what happens there is that when he gets onto the ball, that should be either Babel or Memphis stepping to him. This time they have Proms stepping out, and when Proms steps out to him, that does leave space in that area for Yinter to play a pass, because you have Klosterman, who is higher and should be closed down by Proms, and then you have Gnabry near Blind. So with Blind kind of caught out, you have Yinter play the ball around him for Gnabry running off of him, and Gnabry runs off him to run at the center backs, but as he's able to cut in on Van Dijk and De Ligt, he's chopped down by Frenkie de Jong. But just like that, you see them break swiftly when they notice that they do have a numerical advantage in that area based off the fact that Holland was unable to close down properly, and that's how they're able to break. And we look to two other opportunities. You see Germany breaking quickly in transition, and a lot of it is down to their discipline without the ball, their work rate, and their defensive shape. So when we do see Germany break on the counter, it's a lot of breakdowns from Holland in Germany's third. We look to the first opportunity. We have De Ligt with the ball, and when he has has the ball there. He's not closed down, and he slides the ball into De Roon, who is often dropping off into these deeper roles near half. Now, we often saw Royce shifting out to those positions, but normally that is Toni Kroos's man, and that's where Holland were trying to pull Germany out of position, and they almost did it here. So now with Royce not stepping into that role, you have Kroos stepping out to his marker in De Roon. And what happens there is that you have Babel dropping off to the right of him. But Kimmich notices that, so when the pass goes into Babel, it is behind him, and Kimmich steps in to win the ball. The ball falls to Kroos, and instantly he locates space in between De Ligt and in between Van Dijk, because like I said, the wingbacks are high, pushing back the German wingbacks. Slides the ball into that space for Gnabry, breaking in behind, but Gnabry tries an audacious chip and it falls right into Silason's hands. But just like that, you see, they almost get the breakdown. Germany's midfield is alert to it. They win the ball, instantly counter, almost get the goal. That was their alternative route to goal, besides the fact that they had Sula breaking forward, was to try and hit Holland on the counter when they're pushing so many men forward, because their attack has the speed. We look to another opportunity, and we look to the final one, where you have Gnabry dropping back to win the ball off Dumfries. And once he wins the ball off Dumfries to dispossess him, he slides it out to Scholes, who begins to break forward. Scholes now locates a pass in between De Roon and in between De Ligt for Royce breaking into that channel. Now it's Royce against Van Dijk, with Timo Werner breaking free in midfield to try and get a pass beyond Van Dijk, but Royce slides it just ahead of him, and he's unable to get it, and it kills the attack. Germany had one more opportunity where we did see Royce fire a shot on goal from point blank range that Silason did save based off a Holland breakdown where Kroos was able to shift through midfield. But we break down that first half, Germany's shape was solid. Holland were unable to create any legitimate chances besides the one on the counter. Germany were able to build attacks through Sula. That was how they were able to get their goal, and their defensive shape and their organization to detail, or their attention to detail, and the fact that they were working for each other in midfield allowed them to win the ball in Holland's half and break on the counter, just lacking that final bit of quality to build on their lead. So now let's get to the second half, see if Holland made any changes and how they were able to fight back and win the game. So even when we break down the second half, the Germans had a better start in the opening 15 minutes, a lot of it stemming down the left-hand side. Simple Kroos ball over the top. Klosterman runs off Blind. He pokes it back to Gnabry, who did run off De Jong, and he locates the ball. He fires the ball into the 6-yard box past Silason, and Royce is trying to get onto it as he ran off De Roon, but you had De Ligt clear it over the net. Shortly after that, again down the left-hand side, Neuer fizzing the ball into the left channel for Gnabry, who pulls out De Ligt, and now he pokes it into the path of Royce, and before De Jong could get there, he pokes it back to Gnabry, who fizzes himself through De Ligt and Dumfries, and Royce picks up, and you have Royce picking up the loose ball, and he's now running at his marker in Van Dijk, with Werner making the overlapping run, but De Roon tracks it well and brushes him off the ball. However, De Roon clearance falls to Kroos, and he slides it out to Scholes, and his cross through the 6-yard box does get cleared, and that's another big problem because you had Gnabry looking to run off Blind. Shortly after that, again, we see more of this, and this one is even more simplistic. From a simple throw-in from Klosterman, you have Gnabry pull out Kimmich, and you simply have Gnabry pull out, once again, his marker in De Jong, and what you end up seeing here is that you have Kimmich running off Wijnaldum, gets the throw, holds off Wijnaldum and Blind, but Wijnaldum does poke it into the path of Kroos. But who do we have down the left side breaking free? Scholes, who runs at Dumfries and fires across into the box, across the center backs, and Van Dijk clears it before Werner could get a tap in, and it continued from there. This time Scholes tracking Dumfries well, and then clipping the ball into the left channel for Werner. And what happens there is that he's able to break down that left-hand side and locate Gnabry, pulling out De Ligt. And when he pulls out De Ligt, he clips the ball, he drops the ball off to Kroos, who stabs it down that flank. But again, like we see, he's making the run, Werner, down that channel, but it's De Roon who comes across, and he played a key role in ensuring that Germany couldn't break on the counterattack and improve their leads. So now when we look to Holland, a lot of their chances stem through Germany's mistakes, and that was how they were able, or partially able, to get back into the game. We look to one of the chances that was created prior to their equalizing goal, and it's De Ligt sliding the ball out to Dumfries, and that attracts Scholes, but he locates his teammate in Babel dropping off Ta, and he plays the ball into Babel, and then he runs off Scholes to make that run. Babel's first touch was a bit heavy, and then we see Scholes gamble to step to him, but what he's able to do is to play a reverse pass that deflects into the path of Dumfries breaking forward. That drags out Sula, and we see Memphis running across Yinter to get the pullback. With Kimmich coming across, he locates the fact that you have Wijnaldum breaking into that space because Kimmich isn't marking him, and he fires a shot on goal that Neuer is able to push away. Shortly after that, we do see some changes. We see Malen coming, and he moves up front, which pushes Babel to left wing back role, and then you see Proms move to a right wing back role, and Proper moves into midfield for De Roon, who was playing on a booking. And shortly after that, that is when we saw Holland get back into the game. A lot of it stemming down the left-hand side. We have Blind shifting the ball out to Wijnaldum, who is tracked by Kimmich, and when he makes that move into that space, he's closed by Yinter and Klosterman, and he ends up dropping the ball back to Babel, who runs beyond Klosterman and delivers a hopeful cross into the box. Ta does miss it, and what happens there is that with him missing it, we see De Jong run off Werner and get his first touch across Scholes to fire a shot from point blank range past Neuer. We saw then Germany try to change things, Low moving to Havertz and moving to Gundogan, which saw them be more of a 3-5-2 with Havertz up front with Gnabry, and that kind of left them without the speed that they did offer in the first half, and more control with Gundogan playing a bit higher, and then you had Proper stepping to Kroos, with Proper holding that position that De Roon was in a deeper role. But even then, you see the build up to the second goal, not the fact that Ta did concede from an own goal from a set piece, but the build up into getting into that position. And once again, it's Blind shifting into that left-sided role now because he's having that freedom, because they have two men up front and they have the spare man. So Blind is pushing into midfield. Havertz tries to track him, and he slides the ball out to Babel, who is closed by Klosterman, and he pokes it into Wijnaldum, darting into that space ahead of Yinter. What we see now here is Wijnaldum backheels the ball into the path of Babel, who wins a throw-in that puts Holland in a position to win the corner kick that leads to Ta's own goal. You think Holland have the game here locked, but Germany were still able to find routes down the left-hand side. The build-up to the penalty, whether you think it's a penalty or not, did stem down the left. It is a diagonal ball from Yinter out to Scholes, who's able to get through Proms, and he drops it back to Gundogan, who plays that ball, reverse ball between De Ligt and in between De Jong, tracking for Scholes, and that leads to the challenge between him and De Ligt. And then shortly after that, we see Ta stepping forward, and he locates Gundogan dropping off to pull out Proper, and he plays the ball into the path of Kroos, who splits Proper and De Jong for Scholes, breaking down that left-hand side. It forces De Ligt across, and the pullback to his teammate in Gnabry running across Van Dijk doesn't lead to an opportunity, but it shows Scholes getting into advanced positions and placing Germany in a position where they can create chances. However, similar to the two goals that they did concede, another mistake from Germany leads to Holland pushing their lead and eventually winning the game. What you see there from a short free kick in their own half, it's Yinter playing it to Kimmich, and he drops it back to Yinter. You have Wijnaldum step to him, and Yinter can't play to Klosterman, who is closed by Babel, so his clearance hits off Babel's foot and falls to Blind, and Blind instantly splits Kimmich and Kroos for Memphis, and Memphis locates the run of Wijnaldum running off Yinter, and he pulls it back in between the center backs in Sula and Yinter for Malen breaking across, and he taps in his effort. Ake came on and went to center back, pushing Blind out. Joachim Low tried to bring on Brandt as they moved to a 4-3-3, but Germany were hit on the counter in the dying minutes of the game, and their second half collapse can only be blamed on themselves. But let me know what you guys think. Can Joachim Low build a Euro 2020 contender with the players at his disposal? And what about Holland? Are they the real deal? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.